Okay, great. So I just want to let everybody know that this webinar is being recorded and there are closed captioning happening for anybody that needs it. So if everyone can just give me a thumbs up or unmute and just let me know, okay, great, that you can see the captioning. Um, Also, I dropped in the chat a text of the links that we're going to go over today. And I'm going to drop in the documents, including a script of everything I'm going to say. So if you do have text to speech, you can listen along that way. And for different learning styles and learning modalities, you're welcome to peruse all the content that I'm going to share today. And if you have any questions on that content, feel free to drop it in the chat at any time. And while I do that, I'm just gonna acknowledge that I am the Cafe Fellow here at the Center for Faculty and Academic Excellence. And I am also a third year PhD candidate. I worked at CGU for 3 years as the Assistant Director of Admissions. And currently, I am the Director of RS Recovery Services, a business in Claremont that focuses on training, counseling, and development for therapists. So it's a pleasure to be here with you all. That breadth has given me a lot of experience working with different populations, different ages. I'm also the Web Lab Fellow for high school students and have worked with various ages, various learning abilities. So today I hope to share that expertise with you so that you can make your Canvas courses accessible for all students, no matter what their abilities may be. And now I'm just gonna check and make sure everybody's following along okay, and the documents were received in the chat okay. I see green checks. Perfect. All right, good. And I'm just gonna share my screen here. Okay, perfect. So can everybody see the presentation okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to go over a little bit more about what we do at the center at the end of the webinar. But first, let's just get to why everybody's here today. Because we are all educators in some format, we have knowledge, and inevitably, we are going to have to share that knowledge with our colleagues, students, family, friends. So today, whatever educational setting you might be in, this course is designed to just give you the basic overview of how to make the knowledge that you're sharing accessible and compliant because there are rules and regulations for educators. So we're going to go over that a little bit. And this is a basic overview. We will have some role-playing scenarios at the end that go into intermediate and advanced scenarios. So if you want to challenge yourself, I invite you to stay till the end, and we will be doing that in breakout rooms. But generally, this is going to be a basic overview for how to be ADA compliant in your Canvas courses, some tips for how you can check your accessibility and just make sure that you're in alignment with that. We have several tools and resources, including browser extensions and best practices and standards and tools for you, including a checklist at the end and a list of resources that you can follow along with. Ultimately, the basic goal of accessibility is pretty much the same as just being a good person. So the first rule is just empathy and try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and think if you had different learning abilities or if you have disabilities, how would you want to be treated? And just acknowledging that the way that we see the world might not be the way that it's experienced by everybody. So, how can we make sure that our learning environment is fun and engaging, but also accessible and not excluding anybody for where their positionality is? So pretty much in a nutshell, that's going to be accessibility content. Again, we're going to have a checklist so you can follow along with that. Everything that is in the checklist is covered in the slides. And this is going to be a no stress presentation, which means that if you don't get all the material, everything will be shared at the end. You're always welcome to drop questions in the chat ongoing and unmute yourself if the chat is difficult for you to navigate. Everything will be available online in script form with links fully written out for any text to speech software. And we also have one-on-one appointments that I'm going to go over that we do at Cafe at the end of the webinar. And so if any of the material is difficult for you and you have looked at the links and the resources afterward, you can always schedule a one-on-one appointment with myself or one of the fellows and staff at Cafe, and we'll walk you through everything that we're saying in person. Or if you have a different type of learning modality and you want to send us a video asking a question, or you prefer a recorded video response or an email response or a text response, part of being accessible is using alternative tools. So we're happy to respond to you and meet you where you're at and make sure that your learning experience about Canvas and ADA is fun. That's the goal today, is just to have fun and learn what we can and keep coming back to this, because accessibility is an ongoing thing. There's always new technology, always new tools. So it's really a practice of learning how to return again and again to the content, always honing your skills and learning how to ask the right questions and just be critical educators and learners ourselves. So that's pretty much what we're going to do today. And I'll stop and ask if there's any questions or comments on anything I've shared, and just make sure that all the documents and everything in the chat is legible to everybody in the meeting. Okay, I'm seeing some nods, so I'm going to keep going there. Thank you. Okay, so first of all, this might seem like a pretty basic question, why it matters, but it really is important to know why we're doing this. In addition to just being good people, wanting to be accessible, wanting to be empathetic, there's also some structural and legal issues and ethical issues that we need to consider. So the basics are ethics, as I mentioned before. It's just important to make sure that your learning experience is accessible to everybody. We want to make sure that our environments are not excluding people. So there's the basic ethics of that. But also, as teachers in America, in a nation, we have legal requirements. And that is the Americans with Disabilities Act. So there might be different acts in different countries, and I invite you to keep that in mind. These are specific for America. But if you're going to be doing a conference in another country, it's important to look up their specific legal requirements to make sure that you're in accordance, especially if you're doing a presentation abroad or a conference that's transnational. You're going to want to have a good understanding of global standards as well. But today, for the purpose of the basic introduction, we're going to focus on the Americans with Disabilities Act, which you might have heard commonly used as ADA. And just to give you some context, that was started by the Bush administration in the 90s, 1990, in fact. So not too long ago, but we've had a good amount of time working with these standardizations, and a lot of tools and best practices have arisen from the time that it was initially enacted. And specific sections that you're going to want to familiarize yourself with are Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act, because that's where a lot of these requirements come from. And so, in addition to the ethical concerns and the legal consideration, there's also engagement, because as a teacher, we all know that you learn just as much from your students as they learn from you, hopefully. You're not just kind of giving them your knowledge and their empty repositories of that. We're constantly learning from each other, and every student has something to share. And so, as educators or staff members who are facilitating learning environments, we want to make sure that our students are able to teach us and engage with us just as much as we are teaching them. And so, for your students to really be able to communicate with you and to do that, they need to be able to access the material appropriately and just stay engaged, keeps things fun, keeps everybody happy. And that's really what we want in a learning environment, is that joy and that low stress attitude. So if you can imagine, graduate school or education environments can be stressful in and of themselves with the assignments and the deadlines and other students. And so you don't want to add one more thing to that student by making it inaccessible to them. Or you can imagine trying to turn submitted document in at the end with Microsoft Word and all of our different softwares. You don't want to add just one more problem for that student because that can make or break their experience. And we want to make sure that we're removing barriers to education and not putting them up. And so this really just lays out the fact that we might have our heart in the right place, we might know the law, but if we're not being critical of how we're engaging students, we still could be putting barriers up. So these are just ways to make sure that we stay accountable and critical of the way we teach. And that's really what the checklist is for. So don't worry if, again, all of this information is a lot for you. You can always return to the slides and the checklist that has specific links to step by step how to's for each thing I'm going to go over. Okay. So the nitty gritty is really, what does it look like to be accessible? What does it actually look like in the real world in Canvas? And this is a basic overview of where you're going to be doing most of your accessibility work. Again, don't worry if this looks a little abstract to you. I'm going to do a live demonstration following the slides. So just let this be an introduction to kind of where to look out for. And you're just going to want to be looking for the content editor area. So obviously, just like Microsoft Word or Google Documents, there's a basic area for text, and there's an area to edit that text, to link things, to add pictures, and then if you see this person on the bottom here, this is going to be the accessibility checker in Canvas. And the important thing about this area is this is where you're going to be adding a lot of the text and where a lot of the problems can occur. Now, the good thing about Canvas is it's completely navigatable by the keyboard. Yes, I see a question.
Oh, I think your I can't see your screen share anymore.
Oh, whoops, sorry. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Okay, let me just see here. How about now?
Oh, perfect.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. Thank you. So now that you can see what I'm talking about, this person right here, this is going to be the big accessibility checklist area, which we'll go over in a moment. And this is, everybody who has instructor capabilities in Canvas or just knows how to use Microsoft Word or Google Docs, knows this is where you put the text. But text is going to be your best friend because when you think about somebody that has mobility issues, might not be able to use a mouse, might not be able to has barriers to visibility, they're going to rely on their text to speech software, which we'll cover in a little bit, to completely read everything out. And so this might seem simple, but if your headers, for example, are not in header 1, 2, or 3 format, that isn't picked up by their text to speech software, and they're going to miss all of that content. If your images aren't captioned, or if your text is too wordy and too dense, that can be barriers for student participation. So, a lot of professors want to put in images, colorful things, a lot of dynamic media, and that's all perfectly fine and encouraged. But you want to make sure that you're accompanying all of that with the appropriate alternate texts and that everything is navigatable by a keyboard navigation support for students with mobility issues who are entirely navigating Canvas by their keyboard, by voice command, or other text to speech software. Okay, so just before I do a demo, this is quickly what it looks like in a typical Canvas page. You'll see the module here. You'll go to edit. This is the image of what we were looking at, the headings, the accessibility checker, and this module is already done. So congratulations. That's pretty much, it's as easy as that. But now let's break it down a little bit and see what that whole process was. So again, this area, this person standing here is going to be your best friend because this is the accessibility checker built into Canvas. However, if you do not have access to Canvas or we understand that not everybody's going to be using Canvas. I'm going to share an accessibility checker browser extension that's called Wave. That's already in the checklist if you want to check it out. And what Wave does is Wave is an additional accessibility checker. In one click, you can make sure whatever your content is, that it is accessible. Um, and in addition, I would recommend always using the checklist because we want to be in conversation with technology, but we don't always want to be completely relying on it. So, what I'm trying to do today is give you foolproof methods and multimodal methods, just checks and balances. So you could do the accessibility checker in Canvas, you could do the checker in Wave and see if there's differences or contrasts. Maybe Wave is really good at checking a certain type of text, and maybe Canvas is really good at checking other types. So it's good that you're familiar with the tools. And then I always recommend pulling out the checklist. I even print it out so that I could look at it myself and just make sure everything is up to par. And if you do that, you should be in good shape. And then if you still have problems, if your students are coming to you, always listen to your students, keep checking in with them. Then you can schedule an appointment with us and we can walk you through maybe what's falling through the cracks or what you need to hone in on and sharpen that up. But again, just the basics. Make sure that you're using the accessibility checker. It's already built in because Canvas is legally liable because of that ADA Compliance Act. So they had to build these things in for you. So utilize them because they're there. And this is what you want to see. You want to see the balloons and kind of letting you know that no issues were detected. So if you see that, then you're in good shape. And again, I'm going to demonstrate all of this, so don't feel like you have to know it all. I'm going to walk you through this step by step. But just to kind of cover the overview, most professors, and even I have this problem quite a bit. Professors scan their readings and then they put them on Canvas, and that's really great because you can download them and print them. But it's actually read by screen reader tools as a picture. And as you know, pictures have no text. So unless the professor is going in and adding the alt text, which would be tedious to do to every document, what you can do is you can convert your PDF to a Word document so it's readable as a text file. That way, the softwares are readable to the students. And Adobe Acrobat has accessibility tools to do that, but not everybody has access to Adobe. So in the checklist, I have free links and how-to guides for how to do that on your own. And just remember, it's all about the text. It's really just when in doubt, lean into the text. And that's going to be your saving grace there because that's how a lot of these softwares navigate what you're sharing with your students. And then think about structure. If you have a text to speech software or an AI tool is reading your material, they're gonna want to stop at certain areas. If the headings are out of whack or out of those 1, 2, 3 formats, it's gonna miss it. So just think if you want it to be linear and you want it to be structured so that the software can read it accurately. If it's jumbled or if it's hard to read or in a lot of different fonts, that's going to be difficult. So just make sure that everything is clear, not too text heavy, but well structured and readable and not in a photo format. And then, just like I did today, we want to offer many different formats for assignments. So if your students submit written reports, that's important. But I've had professors with great success use video formats, offer the opportunity for their students to submit video formats to them, ask questions in video submissions or audio submissions, written reports as well. So just make sure that you're as flexible as you're asking your students to be, and that there's multiple modes of communication for your students to reach out to you. And that means that if you're in a Zoom meeting and you drop the information into the chat, not every text to speech reader or assistive software can read the chat. So make sure that you have links available. If you have a QR code, make sure you also have the link fully written out for text to speech readers. And just make sure that you're having as many checks and balances as you can to be accessible and flexible. Okay. So again, don't hesitate if you have any questions or anything. I did drop in the Canvas accessibility checklist and the links. They're one document that has links and important points to remember. And they're also going to be on the website. So no worries there. And if you weren't able to catch this webinar or you have little time and you're not able to watch the recording, you can always reach out and schedule a one-on-one appointment. We love talking to students, and I'm sure you'll teach us a thing or two that we didn't even think of. So please come with your questions. And now I'm just going to demonstrate a little bit of how this is performed. So I'm going to show you a typical Canvas course instructor view. And I've set up some problems in it for you. So if you were the professor in this course, this is going to be a little training in what you've learned and how you can make sure that this is all accessible for you. Okay, can everybody see my screen okay? Awesome. Okay, thank you. Beautiful. So this is a typical Canvas course. Everybody familiar with this view? Nothing new? Okay, perfect. And if it is new, no worries. This is what the basic instructor view looks like. So you're going to go to your modules, and we're going to go to this test module here. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of show you a little bit about this module, give you kind of an overview. And I just want you to unmute or drop in the chat any way that you're comfortable. What do you see before we go to the accessibility checker? Um, what do you think might be like off a little bit in this?
Maybe alt text on the images, the contrast on utilize, bullet point number 1.
Beautiful. Okay. I could tell you have experience in this. This is not your first time with accessibility checker because yeah, exactly right. Perfect. Perfect. So, do you want to walk me through how to edit this?
I would go to the edit pencil icon, and then what I've typically tried to do is click on the um, accessibility icon to just highlight. Oh, so there's an incorrect header, I think.
Ah, perfect. Okay, perfect.
And I
So,
didn't catch that originally, but I'm
perfect.
not super familiar because I usually guide faculty on how to kind of be aware of it, but I've never done it for them. So I'm trying to get a little bit more familiar with it. Um, and I've been out of Canvas for a few years. So this accessibility checker is a new feature that's been on my radar. So I'm not too familiar past this point.
Well, I'm impressed. That is advanced. Clearly, you've done this before. So, there's two ways that you can address this. One is to kind of hunt it out yourself and just kind of looking, you could see that there's something like a little off about this. But again, if you're a professor or the average student, you're not going to know, like, you're not going to know the difference between this size or this size.
Mhm.
So thankfully, the accessibility checker, you can go to the action to take and it'll say fix heading hierarchy. And that means that it'll make your headings in either 1, 2, or 3 format. So if you look at, just to show you before we fix it, if you just click on the heading, okay, there's something wrong with my headings. So if you click on this heading, you'll notice that it is in heading 2. Okay. Oh, no, it's in paragraph form, which is not heading 1, 2, or 3.
Mhm.
If you click on this heading, that's in heading 4. So everything is kind of jumbled up. There's none of the headings are proper.
Mhm.
So you can go to, if you don't want to go and click it all yourself, you could just ask the accessibility to fix it
Mm.
and fix heading hierarchy, apply, and boom, your headings will be in the proper formats. Oh, wait, let's see. Maybe you have to wait until you're done with everything.
Okay.
So keep checking because here it's clearly in heading 3, but it's always good to do a manual check
Mhm.
and make sure everything is in the heading 1, 2, and 3 format that you want. So now you can see that everything is in the proper format and everything else is in the paragraph form. Now, another issue that I didn't notice was that you can only have 120 characters in alt text. I thought you could just put a whole
Oh.
paragraph in, whatever you want. I was being very descriptive, and you really want to be succinct, which is a great skill, honestly, for everyone to have. So, something I've come to love as a graduate student is always editing and being concise and clear. So, you really don't need all of this. It's just a hand drawn smiley face doodle, yellow symbol, smiling, emotion. You don't need too many things. So you can just apply that and that'll solve that problem. And then great catch. I can't even see this. And so you're just going to want to make sure that it's contrasted or obviously in alignment with the other colors that you're using
Mhm.
on your color palette. So you can either adjust it this way or you can go to your color palette and just make sure it's in alignment with everything else. And I just did it myself, so I'm not gonna apply that. And let's see here. Maybe it is gonna make me do that. Or let's see. Okay. Okay. So let's just go to the next one and see where we're at here. So now this looks like it doesn't have,
Oh, it might be a broken link.
yeah, something is a little off here. So image options is how you're gonna add alt text. So if you're curious how you even add the alt text initially, if you want to do it manually and not in the accessibility checker, you can always click on the image itself and you'll see image options, and then you can play around with it. Add in whatever you want. You could add in the link. You can customize it. And this looks like the alt text is good. The image is good there. And I believe when we publish it, it will just have the logo there. So we'll double check that. And let's see how we're doing. Oh, okay, good. Thank God. So
Balloons.
that's great. So that's what you want to see. However, let's say you want to add a video. Um, I'm going to walk you through how to do that and how to add captions to the video. Now, there is a feature called Canvas Studio that allows you to caption videos, but it is a paid feature and not every university has it. So, what I recommend is using captioning software on your own and uploading the video already captioned, or producing a captioned video and turning the caption into a text file, and you can upload it in the way I'm going to show you. If you aren't sure of what softwares to use, look at the checklist because there are step by step guides for how to caption. But I'm going to show you one way that's the easiest way to do it. So we have our happy face. Now we're going to add a video. Okay. Let's, so you're gonna go to this little icon here and you're gonna go to course media, or If you haven't uploaded it yet, you're going to upload it from your computer or your user media. Thankfully, last night I uploaded a little demo video for us today that should be there. Let's hope. So let's see here. I don't want to do the wrong one. So let's see. I uploaded it last night. Where could it be? Okay, so this is going to be a typical issue to have. Let me just make sure that we save our changes here. And I'm just going to go over to Files. And okay, so it is in Test ADA. There it is. And there's our video. So let's see. I do not believe we have to move it at all. So here it is. It's right here. So let's see. All right, we're going to go to Edit. We're going to go to our little area. We're going to go to Course Media. We're going
I
to.
think it's the second one down.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank God. Okay. So there's our media. That's how you add it. Okay, so this is a little video. It's a positive affirmation for students with disabilities. I belong here, and my abilities make me unique and strong. Okay, so little video, positive. You want your students to hear it, but you're not sure how to caption it. So you're going to click on the video just like you clicked on the image and it had image options. There's video options. And this is where you can put in your alt text and you can adjust the video. And this is where you're going to upload your caption file. So again, in this Canvas instructor view, it's not going to upload the captions for you. You either will upload the caption file, select the language, and then you'll be able to do that. Or if you have access to Canvas Studio, it will generate it for you. But again, not every university has that. And so I recommend just uploading the video already captioned and then downloading the caption file and uploading it additionally to Canvas, just so it's there. And then testing it out when you're done. But it's pretty easy in terms of Canvas makes it really simple for you. Image options, and you can add all your alt text, and then video options. So now you're good to go, ideally. But we're going to want to just go over our checklist also and make sure that everything there is good. And now let's play around with some scenarios and just kind of test our knowledge a little bit. So I'm going to drop in a scenario in the chat, and I'm also going to read it and just see how you would address it. Okay. So we're going to role play a little bit, and here's the first scenario. A student with a visual impairment is trying to navigate your Canvas course, but is struggling because the images used in the course lack alt text. What would you do for that?
In that case, I would ensure that my course had descriptive, succinct text describing all the images. Um, Knowing that I can leverage the accessibility checker in Canvas, that would be my first step. And I would make sure that if it is a decorative image, that it's marked accordingly so that any assistive technology would be able to convey that information for the student with impairment issues.
Excellent. Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's exactly what I would recommend also is just checking the accessibility checker and then making sure that everything has the appropriate alt text. Using the checklist, using the accessibility checker, and then using any kind of browser is a great way to do that. And for those of you that are following along, what we did with the happy face, where we went to the image options and put in the alt text, that's exactly what we're talking about here. Okay, so this is a little more intermediate. That was just a warm up. A student with a hearing impairment is unable to access crucial information in lecture videos because there are no captions or transcripts available. The student is falling behind and requests accommodations.
So in this case, I would ensure that all video content in the course would have an accompanied transcript file in text format, and then also, if possible, explore any software, including Canvas Studio, to review the auto-generated captions and ensure that they're accurately describing the audio of the video.
Yay! All right, perfect. So I highly recommend that. We have also accommodations with the Dean of Students office. So make sure the student feels supported. Make sure that they're going to CGU's Office of Student Engagement, but particularly the Dean of Students to learn about accommodations that are available to them. And always just be patient with students that are having issues. You can imagine what it was like to be a student. Many of us are still students or have been, and it's stressful. It's not, students, they put so much of their heart into it, or they might be doing a lot of other things. You never know. Maybe they have a family member that's sick, or they're carrying a lot of weight that they might not be showing. So if they're falling behind, just be compassionate and think about how you can help them. Check your Canvas site, just like you mentioned. Everything you said is perfect. So just make sure, in addition, that they have resources with the Dean of Students office and that they feel like they know what kind of services are available to them. And then if they're falling behind, exactly right. Caption, go back to your lecture videos, properly caption them with one of the softwares in the checklist or the resource list. Find a software and then send them the full text, and then give them some extra time. Understand that they're going to be going through that text. They're going to be also trying to keep up. So just be accommodating. And again, a lot of ADA compliance is just being a good person, being empathetic, but understanding that your good intentions really need to be backed up with tangible checks and balances, because we might be well intentioned, but we might accidentally be putting barriers up. So just be mindful and kind. Okay. And so our last scenario. Okay. A student requests accommodation for a timed quiz in Canvas, as their disability requires additional time and rest breaks. What would you do with that student?
In this case, in the past, for students with accommodations, we've usually allotted them um, additional time to complete any quizzes or examinations, and provided a safe environment where they feel like they have all the resources they need to be successful. So I think along the same lines would be appropriate in this situation.
Exactly. Exactly right. Yeah. Okay, good. So you are have a lot of expertise in this area, I can tell. So that's exactly right. And just making sure they know the accommodations that are available to them, referring them to the handbook, referring them to the Dean of Students office, and also giving them multimodalities, as you mentioned, is exactly right. Maybe they can submit the quiz in a video format. Maybe they can in addition to having extra time, submit it in a different format or try and work with them and understand that each disability is unique and you're going to want to understand what their issues are, and then that will help you know what modality to offer them. So obviously if they're have motor sensory issues, maybe having a voice dictated way of responding to the text, or there's a lot of different ways in addition to video, email, text, or you could have that one-on-one time with that student, and you're going to learn a lot from working with them. And these scenarios are really amazing opportunities to hone your skills. So every time you have a student that is requesting extra accommodations, it's an opportunity to make your class better. And so just look at it that way. It's a really amazing opportunity to learn maybe where your gaps are and learn to communicate in a completely new way. And part of the beauty of learning is it really requires diversity to move between old and new ways of thinking. If you're always kind of working with the same neurotypical students, or you always have students and you're communicating to them in the same way, um, learning a new way to communicate is going to help you learn, help you see things from a new lens, and it's really going to deepen the way that you can communicate and the knowledge that you're sharing with your students. So, all of that is an amazing opportunity and nothing to shy away from. So now that's pretty much the basics. And I invite you, if there's a specific scenario that you've encountered, feel free to share it, unmute, raise your hand, drop it in the chat, and just let us know what are some of the things that you're thinking through and some of the problems that you've seen in the past that we could all learn from.
One of the things that has been something I've seen is faculty that are repurposing their pandemic content that was typically hour-long videos. We're working with faculty to kind of reevaluate the way that they structure their course and break that content up into shorter videos that's easier to digest. In addition to that, whenever there are assigned videos to be watched, I think it's really important to include the title of the video as well as an indicator of the time commitment. That helps students really understand the the time load that they're going to dedicate to their um, assignments and plan that accordingly so that it isn't overwhelming that you click on a video and you realize it's 90 minutes long and that doesn't fit with your schedule. So just having that student-centered experience in mind when it comes to setting up and organizing the Canvas course is important, and I think we're also um, having the goal of establishing a CGU branded design and templates so that students kind of preemptively know where to find certain resources, um, so they have a good experience.
Wonderful. That most universities are not as ahead of the game. So CGU students are really lucky that our IT department is so mindful and forward thinking. And that's exactly right. Yeah, it's really about getting into the student's mindset and not only thinking about the content you're going to share, but if you're a student, how is the student going to move through that content? And that's such a good point. I have professors who are still using the pandemic content. And in some ways, that's helpful because it has a lot of information on online modalities. And I've noticed that a lot of professors are better at having students who currently have COVID or who aren't able to attend class, having Zoom set up. The IT department is really hands on in terms of helping professors set up the OWL or other types of hybrid modalities, which we will cover in another webinar, accessibility for Zoom, not Canvas, because they're different, but we're using them together. And sometimes the software is all bleed. We just think of like
Mhm.
online environments as all the same, but each environment has its own tools, its own set of limitations, and then add them together. And then you have a whole nother set of variables and limitations as they're talking to each other. So we're going to get a little more advanced in our next webinar as well, using ARIAs or landmarks or understanding, which is pretty much what we called structure in this webinar. But there are particular ways which are in the checklist, so don't worry, you have access to them. But it's really understanding how the text to speech software is going to land in the structure of whatever information you're sharing. And so, why does that matter? If you don't put in the proper headings, or if it's not formatted in a way that the recognition software can stop. If it's just a big block of text, then it's really hard for a student to navigate from one area to the next or to jump around. So you're going to want to make sure that the structure has clear breaks in the text, has clear headings, because that's how the software sections it off, if you will. So we can see visually space, but the software doesn't see space the way that we do. It needs headings, it needs those headers in one, two, or three, it needs text broken up. That's how it literally creates the landscape that it helps provide to the student. And so just make sure that you're understanding that and navigating that is a really important thing. Yeah, that's great. Is there anything anywhere that you would go if you had just unlimited resources, or something that you're really excited about, maybe on the forefront of technology, or something that might not exist that you really would like access to? Or what would you say is kind of on the edge of your knowledge zone in terms of accessibility?
I think getting a hands-on experience for how the softwares work so that I can understand um, on the planning and design side of things how to best build for that. Because I feel that obviously the HTML and the coding, one of the things that I learned just recently is that I used to always in the HTML refer to bold as B and italics as I, and I just learned that those tags are actually not read by the software that translates that to communicate that emphasis. So we have to use the strong tag and the EM tag to basically translate that bolding and that italicized that we see visually for someone who would be visually impaired and is using assistive technology. So little changes like that. So being mindful and understanding what the best practice is, I think, and creating some guidelines and having resources for faculty. I do realize that it is a burden for faculty and it's learning something new and getting out of their comfort zone. So kind of balancing that and helping them feel supported when it comes to you know, y- working in the Canvas environment and having it be accessible to all students.
Honestly, I think that is the crux of it, what you just said. Because this is still in the abstract for many people, and you're exactly right. It's about getting in there and doing it. And so that is a really good point. There's no substitute for having a text to speech software run it through. Let in addition to the accessibility checklists and maybe the browsers, Wave is one that's in the first point of the checklist, and they have a browser extension, but they also have API support for disabilities. They have a lot of coding on the back end and help with software development and the actual design side, in addition to folks that are just users. So I really like Wave a lot, but also try it out. There's no substitute for doing it yourself, and running it through a typical text to speech software can really help you see where your own gaps are. And so I highly recommend just learning by doing and getting with a friend and trying things out beforehand so it's not all new to you. But thankfully, CGU has an amazing IT department, and that is trying all this stuff out on their own for faculty. So, at bare minimum, the faculty can at least be users because we have such a good design team helping us. So that's a really amazing thing that CGU offers. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just gonna now let you know that there are text to speech softwares that you might want to try out. Um, and I'm also going to just put in our next webinar with the link for anybody curious. You can register. I'm going to drop it in the chat. Our next webinar is going to be all about teaching philosophy statements. So if you're curious, if you want to kind of get some experience teaching, or you want to start thinking about how you teach, disability, sensitivity, and ADA is a wonderful thing to put into your teaching philosophy statement, especially diversity statement, but making sure that you understand that accessibility and diversity are core values for yourself are really important. And that's what we're going to go over in this webinar by our Cafe fellow, Juan Carlos. And he's going to be going over really why a teaching philosophy statement is important, how to craft one, and how to make sure that it's useful for you and it's meeting your educational objectives and your goals. So we hope you can join us. That's going to be coming up October 17th, so tomorrow from 4 to 5. And we hope that the evening time is accessible to you. And we're really grateful that you joined us today at lunch to spend some time with us. And if there's any lingering questions, now's a great time, or anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to know more about next time, especially in the Zoom ADA compliant and accessibility webinar, just something that you'd like to know or have us research in the meantime, feel free to let us know, and we'll be happy to cover that.
Just want to thank you. This presentation was really helpful.
Thank you, Chris. It was awesome having an IT person in the webinar. I don't think we could have had a better audience. So thank you very much. And thank you for everybody watching the webinar in the community. Again, I'm just going to share our cafe times and a little bit about cafe. So for those of you that haven't heard of the Center for Academic and Faculty Excellence, we do quite a bit of things. We have the link there to our website. I also dropped it in the chat. But in addition to the webinars that we do and kind of training, we also have a wealth of information on our page where you can go and look up entire workbooks on teaching philosophy statements, diversity statements. You can look up a plethora of webinars that we've already hosted. So we actually have an disability webinar already there. So now we have another one, and you can kind of cross-reference and see those different lenses and viewpoints. We have a professional certificate. So if you want to kind of build breadth and have that on your resume or your CV and LinkedIn, we offer that professionalism training for you. A teaching certificate. We're here to support faculty, CGU faculty, especially if you're watching this and want some extra support with your course. Feel free to use the QR code, the link in the chat, or the link on the screen, and that'll allow you to make a one-on-one appointment. And we're always here to just help you make your life a little easier and share the joy of teaching together. We're all in this journey, so we can all help each other just be better and hone our craft and make sure that the content that we're sharing is rigorous, as well as engaging and fun. So thank you, everyone. And this will all be available on our website. So take care. I'm going to stop the recording and hope you have a great day.